Amina and Billa woke before the first light of dawn, when the sky was still deep blue and the air held a sharp chill. Their small room was cold, but they did not linger under the thin blanket. The twins knew that leaving even a moment later could cost them the chance to earn enough coins to buy a little rice. Amina pushed back her hair from her forehead and slipped out of the single wooden cot. Bilal, still half asleep, rubbed his eyes as he sat up. The candle on the low table sputtered, its thin flame dancing on the walls. They did not speak. Words felt too precious when survival was on the line. They dressed quickly in the clothes they had worn the day before. A faded shirt for Amina, a threadbare t-shirt for Bilal, and trousers patched in several places. The shoes were old, the soles worn thin, but they slipped them on with care. Amina tied the laces of her shoes twice, making sure they would not come undone on the rough road. Bilal did the same, his fingers trembling in the cold. Their mother's old towel was folded neatly beside the door. They used it to wipe their faces, though there was no water. The last drop had been poured into their single bowl the night before. Outside, the world was quiet. Only sounds were the distant crow of a rooster and the soft rustle of wind through broken windows. The slum was a maze of narrow alleys and ramshackle houses made of tin sheets, scraps of wood, and old bricks. Mina and Billa walked past leaning walls and dripping roofs, their feet careful not to slip on wet patches. Each carried a heavy brick in one hand. The bricks felt cold and rough, their edges digging into the twins' small palms. Yet the weight was no stranger. It reminded them of why they rose so early. They reached the old kill before the sky began to glow. A guard waved them in without. A word, the kill was an open yard, piled high with rows of orange bricks. Smoke curled from the stacks, and embers glowed deep in the heart of the fire. Workers moved like shadows around the bricks, loading and unloading them onto carts, onto trucks, and onto young shoulders. Amina and Billionaire took their places at the end of a long line. Their bodies were thin but strong, hardened by days and months. Of carrying bricks, Amina lifted her first brick and shifted it to Bilal's waiting basket. Bilal's fingers tightened around the worn handle, kept his back straight, and he lifted with both knees bent. He had learned the right way to carry the bricks so he would not hurt his back. Amina worked the same. They repeated the motion again and again, passing bricks down the line to the waiting truck. Their arms burned, but their faces stayed calm, neither complained or slowed down. A man with a thick mustache and a long coat watched them from a distance. He counted the bricks as they passed. Twins tried not to look at him. His eyes made their hearts pound. When the last brick was loaded, he nodded, and a worker handed each twin a rough coin. The coins clinked in their fists. Together, they held them for a moment, as if sharing a secret joy. Then they tucked the coins into the small pockets of their trousers. They left the kill and set off toward the construction site, which was half a mile away. The sun began to rise, painting the sky pink and gold. The warmth felt good on their backs. The bricks they carried now were fewer, but heavier. Each step felt like a small victory. They did not speak. Sometimes Bilal's foot would slip on a stone, and he would catch himself, afraid of dropping the brick. Amina would glance at him and offer a small, encouraging smile. He would smile back and they would keep walking. At the construction site, building materials lay scattered around. Wooden beams, sacks of cement, broken tiles. Men with hard hats and heavy boots shouted instructions to each other. Some paused to watch the small figures approach. The foreman, a tall man with a booming voice, pointed at the twins. One by one, they handed over the bricks. The twins counted carefully, 20 bricks each, as promised. They did not drop any. The foreman nodded and tossed a few coins into each of their small hands. The coins felt lighter here. The work had been harder. Amina looked down at the coins, then at her brother. She saw the tired shine in his eyes, the way his shirt clung to his thin frame. She wondered how many more days they could keep this up before their bodies gave out. But questions like that were dangerous. They filled her mind with doubts, and doubts could make someone stop. They had stopped once, long ago, and nearly starved. They would not let that happen again. When the sun climbed high, the twins felt the heat pressing down on them. The bricks in their arms had long since been delivered. Now they carried nothing but sweat beaded on their foreheads. They drank water from a cracked metal cup that was shared among several workers. The water was cold and tasted faintly of metal, but they drank greedily. Billow pressed his hand to his mouth to hide the shake in his voice. During a short break, Amina led Billow under a small tree where the shade was thin and still hot. They sat close together on the dusty ground. Amina counted their coins again. 60 coins in total, enough for a small bowl of rice each and maybe a bit of lentils. She smiled at Billow and tucked the coins into a cloth she kept tied around her. Waistop Blel looked at his sister. He saw how she held her back straight, how her eyes never left his when she spoke. "You think we can finish today?" he asked. His voice was soft, but he tried to sound confident. Amina nodded. "We have to. No choice." She brushed a lock of hair from his forehead. "Let's rest for a moment, then go do the evening run." Bilal nodded again. I rested in silence, watching dust motes dance in the slanted rays of light. When the whistle blew, the twins stood and returned to the work site. They loaded bricks again at the kiln and carried them back to the construction site. Their limbs screamed, but they worked as if alone inside their own world. Mina hummed a soft tune under her breath to keep their spirits up. The tune was a lullaby their mother used to sing when they were too small to lift bricks. Abil joined in, and their voices rose together, quiet and hopeful. As evening approached, the line of workers began to thin. The foreman nodded at Amina and Bilal to finish up. Their last bricks were delivered just as the sun dipped low in the sky. The light turned golden, and long shadows stretched across the dusty ground. Amina and Bilal felt their muscles tremble as they lowered their empty baskets. They had done it. They had carried 40 bricks each today. Their stomachs growled with hunger, but their hearts felt warm with the knowledge that they had not failed. They walked back toward home, carrying only their small cloth bundles of coins. The slum was quiet again, the heat retreating and the sky turning orange. Street dogs wandered in search of food. The twins greeted a few neighbors who paused on their porches to watch them pass. No one offered help. In this place, everyone was too busy surviving to notice the survival of others. But Amina and Bilal did not mind. They were used to being invisible at their single-room home. The candle burned low. A tin bowl and a single spoon sat on the floor. Amina laid out 2 small plates of rice and lentils using the coins they had earned. The smell of food filled the room and made their mouths water. They ate in silence, savoring each bite. Amina watched her brother's face, seeing the relief there. She felt a quiet pride in what they had achieved together. After they ate, they sat close to the candlelight. Amina took Bilaw's hand. "One day," she said softly, "we will not have to carry bricks. We will go to school, learn to read and write, and maybe become teachers or doctors." Bilaw nodded, his eyes shining. "And then we will help others." He replied. Amina smiled. "Yes, we will help others." They sat like that for a long time, holding hands, sharing their dreams under the flicker of a single flame. When the candle finally went out, they lay down on the cot together. The night air was cold, but they were warm from their work and their dreams. Amina whispered, "Sleep now. Tomorrow we wake before dawn again." Bilaw closed his eyes and Amina did the same. Outside, the slum was silent. Inside, too small. Hearts beat with hope and determination, ready to face another day. Omar Rahman sat in his sleek office high above the city, the morning sun glinting off the glass walls. His desk was neat, with a single laptop open to stock charts and investment reports. He leaned back in his leather chair and rubbed his temples. Even though he was only 27, he had built a tech empire from scratch. He had millions in the bank, a team of top engineers, and a life most could only dream of. Yet today his heart felt restless. He stood and walked to the window. The streets bustled with traffic and noise. Cars honked, vendors shouted, and people hurried past without a moment's pause. Omar's eyes drifted to a distant corner where 2 tiny figures moved slowly along the pavement. At first he thought they were adults, bending under heavy loads. Then he realized they were children twins. He guessed by their matching clothes. Their backs curved under the weight of rough bricks. Something in Omar's chest tightened. He had forgotten how hard life could be for those without means. He grabbed his coat and hurried down the elevator. By the time he reached the street, the twins had walked past. Omar followed at a careful distance. His polished shoes clicked on cracked concrete as he trailed behind them. He watched how they paused at every few steps to rest, how Amina glanced back at her brother Billo and offered a soft smile. Omar's mind raced. He had worked hard to escape poverty, but he had never seen it so close to home in such a raw way. The twins stopped by a construction site gate. Foreman nodded at them, and they carried bricks inside. Omar waited until they disappeared from view, then crossed the road and entered the work area himself. The foreman frowned at the well-dressed stranger, but waved him through. Omar crouched behind a stack of lumber to watch the twins work. Their arms worked like little machines, lifting and setting down bricks without complaint, even as sweat beaded. On their skin in the hot sun, their faces showed nothing but calm focus. Omar remembered his own childhood. He had grown up in a small village far from here. His father had taught him to code on an old computer, piece by piece, and his mother had sewn clothes so he would look neat at school. Money had been tight, and they had shared every meal with neighbors in need. Omar had vowed then that he would change his fate. But he had never imagined what fate might feel like for those who had no escape plan. As the twins finished their shift, Omar approached the foreman. He spoke softly but firmly, asking about the children. The foreman shrugged and said they had been working for weeks. Their parents had died in a factory accident, he said, and no one else would care for them if they did not work. Omar listened, his heart heavy. He paid the foreman enough coins to let the twins leave early, then slipped the extra as a bonus into the foreman's hand. The man looked surprised but pocketed the money without a word. Omar hurried to the site entrance. He caught sight of Amina and Billo leaving together, their baskets still empty now. They clutched the brittle coins in their hands as if they were the rarest treasure. Omar walked up behind them. When Amina turned around, he saw how thin her face was, how her dark eyes held fatigue. Billo's shirt hung loose on his frame, and his small frame shook with each step. Omar felt a tug of protectiveness he had never known. "Excuse me," he said gently. The twins froze, their eyes wide. "I'm Omar Rahman," he opened his hand to show his empty palm. "I paid the foreman so you could leave early. I saw you working, and I want to help." Amina swallowed and held her brother's hand tight. "Why would you help us?" she whispered. Omar crouched to their level and offered a warm smile. "'Cause everyone deserves a chance to learn and grow," he said simply. Billo blinked, unsure if he heard right. "What do you mean?" Omar stood and dusted off his coat. "To help you stop carrying bricks," he said. "I can pay for your school, for your home, for your food. You can study, learn to read and write, and have a childhood." The twins exchanged a quick look. Had heard promises before, always broken. Trust did not come easily to children who had no one to protect them. Amina's eyes hardened. "Why should we believe you?" she asked. Omar nodded, expecting the question. "I will give you my word. I will come tomorrow to see how you are. If you still doubt me, you can say no. But please think about it. You deserve more than this life." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out 2 shiny coins. "Keep these for now. They are not your wages. They are a gift. Buy something you need." Bilal accepted the coin with trembling fingers. Amina held her coin as if it were a lifeline. The twins did not speak as Omar turned and walked away. The ride home in Omar's car felt surreal. Sunlight streamed through tinted windows as he replayed the scene. He could not shake the image of the twins' weary faces. By the time he reached his penthouse apartment, his mind had made up its decision. He would help them no matter what it cost. He opened his laptop and tapped out a message to his assistant. "Find these children's records. Arrange meeting tomorrow. Arrange schooling in slum area." Within minutes, his assistant replied with confirmation. Omar leaned back and closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he felt at peace. Morning. came with a rush of activity. Omar rose early again, dressed simply in a shirt and jeans, and made his way back to the slum. This time, he brought a backpack filled with school supplies, notebooks, pencils, erasers, and 2 small bottles of water. He carried a stack of clean uniforms for each twin and a few books on reading and writing. He wanted to show them that education could feel like an adventure, not a burden. He found Amina and Billo under the same tree where they had rested the day before. The twins looked smaller in daylight, their clothes stained with dust and sweat. Omar offered the uniforms. "First, these are for you," he said. "Wear them tomorrow when you start school." Amina frowned at the soft fabric, as if fearing it might betray her. Billa's eyes widened at the bright blue color. They slipped into the uniforms and adjusted the collars, feeling the smooth cloth against their skin. Amina ran her fingers along the seams. "They feel nice," she said slowly. Omar smiled. He handed them the notebooks and pencils. "Let's start small," he suggested. "I can teach you a few letters today." The twins exchanged nervous glances, but sat on the dusty ground with him. Omar opened a notebook and wrote a big letter A on the first page. He showed them how to hold the pencil and draw the straight line and the slanted lines. Bilal copied carefully, tracing with his finger before trying with the pencil. Amina leaned close and followed each stroke. Their faces lit up when they realized they could do it. After a few letters, Bilal giggled as he wrote his name. His handwriting was messy, but he beamed with pride. Amina wrote the word bricks on her page, then immediately crossed it out and wrote school. Omar praised them both, and the twins laughed aloud. It was the first time in months they had felt free enough to laugh. Passers-by paused to watch the scene. A billionaire teaching street children to write. Some shook their heads thinking he wanted attention. Others snuck a hopeful smile. As the afternoon sun climbed, Omar packed up his supplies. "You did very well," he told them. "Tomorrow, the tutor will come, and you will go to school. I will see you then." The twins stood and curtsied as best they could. Amina gave Omar a small bow of thanks. Billa extended his hand. "Thank you," he whispered. Omar shook it and patted his shoulder. "See you tomorrow," he said. He walked away, glancing back to see them fall into quiet conversation, hands holding notebooks instead of bricks. The next morning, Amina and Billo walked to the makeshift classroom Omar had arranged in an empty storefront near their slum. A tutor in a neat shirt greeted them and guided them to wooden desks. The twins sat side by side, their notebooks open, their pencils ready. Omar watched from a distance, leaning against a metal pole. He saw their heads bend as the tutor spoke, their eyes bright with curiosity. He realized that this small change in their lives was already starting to grow roots. By evening, Omar felt lighter than he had in years. He returned to his office, but his mind was no longer on stock charts. Instead, he planned a community learning center in the slum with books, computers, and teachers. He imagined other children, like Amina and Billa, discovering the joy of learning. He envisioned a place where poverty would meet hope, and hearts weary from struggle would find rest. Omar smiled as the sun set over the city skyline. He paid little attention to the tower lights that flickered on in his own building. As true light shone on the dusty streets below, where 2 small twins dreamed bigger dreams than bricks. In that quiet moment, Omar knew he was exactly where he needed to be. Omar woke early before sunrise and felt a mix of excitement and nerves. He packed a small bag with gentle gifts for Amina and Billa, 2 soft blankets, a simple football, and a few storybooks. He thought carefully about each item. The blankets would keep them warm on cold nights. The football would let them play like other children. The storybooks would help their reading grow and bring smiles to their faces. He slipped quietly from his apartment, careful not to wake his house staff, and drove back to the slum. The narrow paths were still quiet when Omar arrived. Tin walls glinted in the first light, and painted doors stood like colorful secrets waiting to open. He followed the path he had learned to the twins' small room. The doorway was just big enough for one person at a time. Omar knocked softly. No answer. He knocked again, louder this time. A tiny voice called out, "Who is it?" Omar smiled, wiping dust from his coat. "It's Omar," he said. "I have something for you." The door creaked open and Amina peered through the gap, Bilal just behind her. Her faces held surprise. And caution. Omar crouched and held out the blankets. "These are for you," he said gently. Amina reached out, her small fingers brushing the soft fabric. Billa's eyes widened at the football painted with bright colors. Omar handed them. The ball and the storybooks with pictures of animals in faraway places. The twins' eyes shone as they took the gifts. Amina unwrapped a blanket and ran her hands over it, feeling how soft it was against her skin. Billa lifted the football and tossed it lightly in his hands. Stories felt heavy in their small palms, each page promising new worlds. Omar sat at the edge of their cot and watched them, saw the room's bare floor, the single candle stub, the worn shoes by the doorway. He remembered his own tiny room years ago, where his parents had saved every scrap of fabric to make a single blanket. He reached into his bag again and pulled out 2 envelopes. Amina and Billo looked puzzled. Omar handed them each an envelope. "Inside, you'll find letters," he said. "One is from your tutor, inviting you to a special writing session. Tomorrow, the other is from me, promising that I will keep helping you." The twins opened the envelope slowly. Amina pulled out a small note in neat handwriting. "Dear Amina Billo, I am excited to teach you more letters and words. See you tomorrow at the Learning Center, Miss Nadia." Billo found a similar note, and he read it aloud with a soft voice. A long silence followed. Omar wondered if he had said too much or too little. Then Amina stepped forward. She placed the blanket around her brother's shoulders. "Thank you," she said quietly. Bilal nodded, clutching his book. Omar felt his heart grow warm. He rose to his feet slowly. "I will come every day," he promised. "If you ever need anything, let me know." The twins nodded again, their faces full of wonder. Omar turned and stepped out of the room. He paused at the doorway and looked back. Amina and Bilal stood side by side, holding their blankets and books like treasures. Over the next few days, Omar kept his promise. Each morning he arrived before the sun climbed high. Sometimes he brought new books. Other times he carried fresh fruit for a snack. He watched as the twins found their seats in the small room pressed into an empty shop. Miss Nadia greeted them with a smile that made them feel safe. The walls were painted bright yellow, and a chalkboard stood at the front. Omar observed quietly from the doorway. The twins' heads bent low over their notebooks as Miss Nadia guided their pencils across the page. Omar remembered how it felt to learn new words. He remembered the thrill of writing his first sentences. He saw that same light in the twins' eyes. One afternoon after class ended, Omar found the twins outside under the shade of an old mango tree. The air was hot, but the leaves offered a cool breeze. Mina and Billo played with their new football, kicking it back and forth. Their laughter rang out, echoing through the quiet alleys. Omar smiled, his heart swelling with pride. He walked toward them, and the twins stopped to greet him. Amina wiped sweat from her brow and offered him the ball. "We want to show you a trick," she said. Billo kicked the ball gently, guiding it between small stones laid out like goalposts. Omar clapped. "Well done," he said. The twins beamed. As the days passed, Omar noticed other children watching. They peeked through open doors or crouched behind crates, curious about the twins' lessons. Amina and Billo waved shyly to their friends. Omar realized something. The twins' story was not just theirs. It was becoming the story of their whole community. One morning he called Miss Nadia and asked if she could teach a few more children. Miss Nadia agreed, and Omar set up 2 more seats in the bright yellow room. Soon, other children joined. Some carried tools like the twins once had. Others carried nothing but hope. They all sat side by side, learning the same letters, the same words. One evening, Omar invited the twins to his office. They walked up the shiny elevator, past polished floors and modern art. Amina gasped at the view from the tall window. The city sparkled below like a bed of glowing embers. Bilal stood close to her, his eyes wide. Omar led them to his desk and offered 2 chairs. He took a seat opposite them. Amina and Bilal looked nervous, unsure what to expect. Omar smiled. "I want to show you something," he said. He tapped his laptop and brought up a plan for a small learning center right in their slum. He had drawn bright classrooms, shelves full of books, a a small library, and computer desks, a garden of colorful flowers by the entrance. He had even marked a play area shaped like a circle where they could play football. Amina traced the lines on the screen with her finger. "Will this be for all of us?" she asked. Omar nodded. "Yes, for you, for your neighbors, for every child who wants to learn." Billow's mouth hung open. Omar continued, "I will build this center. It will be open every day. You will get to help me choose books and set up the computers. You will be the first students here." Tears glistened in Amina's eyes. She took a deep breath and said, "I never imagined school could be this big." Billow reached out and held his sister's hand. Omar leaned forward. "Dreams can grow," he said gently, "if someone helps you water them." The next weeks were full of change. Workers came to clear space, lay bricks, and paint walls bright colors. Omar visited daily, checking the progress. Mina and Billa sometimes joined him, helping by handing tools to the builders. They wore small helmets that made them giggle. Passersby stopped to watch. Some offered to help. Others marveled that a billionaire was building in the slum. Slowly, the learning center took shape, rising from bare ground like a promise made real. As the center neared completion, Omar decided to host an opening celebration. He invited neighbors, local leaders, and the families of the children. He had arranged simple snacks, fresh fruit, small cakes, and cold drinks. On the morning of the event, the sun shone bright and clear. A ribbon stretched across the entrance, tied between two young trees. Amina and Bilal stood before the ribbon, holding large scissors. Nervous excitement fluttered in their chests. Omar stood behind them and placed a hand on each shoulder. "Ready?" he asked quietly. The twins nodded, clutching the scissors. Together, with a deep breath, they cut the ribbon, and the crowd cheered. Inside, rows of desks waited beside shelves of books. Computers sat ready on a table near the back. A colorful mural covered one wall, painted by neighbors and the twins. Themselves, the twins led the first children in. They showed them where to sit, how to find pencils, what books to open. Their voices were steady, their faces proud. Omar stood at the doorway, watching the scene unfold. He saw hope shining in the eyes of every child. He saw parents smile, tears of relief on their cheeks. He felt a quiet joy that reached deep into his heart. When the celebration ended, the twins found Omar amidst the crowd. Amina leaned against him and whispered, "Thank you." Billow did the same. Omar knelt and hugged them both. "You did this," he said softly. "Your courage, your hard work, your dreams, this center belongs to you." The twins hugged him back, their hearts full. Outside, the city moved on as usual. But in that small corner of the slum, something had changed forever. Dreams no longer felt impossible. Hope no longer felt distant. And a young billionaire had learned that true wealth lies in lifting others toward their own bright futures. The weeks after the Learning Center opened were full of excitement and change. Every morning, Amina and Billow woke up early, but not to carry bricks anymore. Instead, they wore their clean uniforms and packed their new notebooks into small bags. Their old life of lifting heavy loads had been replaced with books, pencils, and lessons. As they walked through the narrow streets of the slum, neighbors smiled and waved. Some even clapped lightly. The children walked proudly, holding their heads high. They felt seen, respected, and hopeful. The Learning Center had become the heart of the community. Children who used to roam the streets or help in dangerous jobs now had a safe place to sit and learn. Miss Nadia taught them with patience and love. Her voice was calm, and her chalk wrote gently across the board. She taught them how to read stories, write letters, solve simple math, and even understand the world map that hung near the window. The twins always sat in the front row, eager to learn everything. They raised their hands often and helped others who were shy or confused. Omar kept his promise, came almost every day, sometimes sitting quietly at the back of the class, sometimes joining in to teach. He taught them about computers, the internet, and how apps are made. One day, he showed them pictures of his first computer, a broken keyboard and a screen with tape on the corners. He told them how he learned coding in a tiny room just like theirs. The children listened closely, their eyes full of wonder. To them, Omar was not just a rich man. He was someone who truly understood their struggle. Amina and Billo soon became leaders among the students. They helped Miss Nadia clean the blackboard, arrange books on the shelf, and remind others to take care of the learning center. Omar noticed how kind and gentle they were with the other children. One afternoon, he pulled them aside under the mango tree in the small garden next to the center. "You two have become very special here," he said. "Would you like to be classroom helpers? You'll have extra duties, and maybe later, even help plan lessons." Amina's eyes lit up. "Really? We can help teach too." Billa nodded eagerly. "We'd love that." Omar smiled. "Yes, because one day you might be the teachers in your own classrooms." The twins could hardly believe it. Just a few months ago, they were carrying bricks. Now, they were being trained to lead. As time passed, more people in the city heard about the learning center. Journalists visited, writing stories about how a young billionaire had helped to orphan twins and started a change in a forgotten part of town. One story was titled, "From Bricks to Books: How Do Children Inspire a City?" It included pictures of Amina reading in class and Bilal kicking the football with other children during break. The article went viral, spreading across the internet. People commented with kind words, sending in donations to support more books, better chairs, and even a small projector. A local news channel invited Omar and the twins to speak on a special show. The studio was bright, full of cameras and lights. Amina wore a yellow dress and held Billis's hand tightly. Omar sat beside them, wearing a simple shirt with no logo. The host asked them gentle questions about their life before and after the center. Amina spoke softly but clearly. "We used to carry bricks to eat. We thought our life would always be that way, but someone believed in us. Now, we believe in ourselves." Billa added, "We are not just workers. We are students now. One day we will be teachers." The host nodded, eyes shining. "You both are very brave." Omar placed a hand on each of their shoulders. "Their story reminds all of us that every child deserves a chance, no matter where they come from." The show ended with applause. Back home, their neighbors gathered around tiny TVs, proud and teary-eyed. The whole slum felt proud, as if the twins had spoken for every child who had ever been ignored or forgotten. But not everyone saw the change with joy. A few people whispered behind closed doors, saying Omar was doing this for fame or attention. Others thought the center would fail once the news cameras stopped coming. Omar heard these things but did not stop. He continued his work silently. He believed that the only way to prove his heart was through steady action, not loud promises. One day, Omar brought a new friend to the center, Dr. Salma, a kind-hearted woman who had grown up in a poor village and later became a successful school principal. She sat with the children, listening to their stories and reading their work. She was especially impressed by Amina and Billo's progress. "These two are very bright," she told Omar. "If we support them further, they could become future leaders." Omar smiled and nodded. "That's the plan," Dr. Salma offered. "To give them weekend lessons in leadership, problem-solving, and public speaking." The twins eagerly agreed. Every Saturday, she sat with them in the garden under the mango tree, helping them learn how to express their ideas clearly and lead others with kindness. Amina learned how to speak in front of a group. Billa learned how to plan small group activities. Slowly, they grew more confident, not just as students, but as future role models. Meanwhile, the center began hosting events, reading days, art contests, and science fairs. One day, Amina drew a poster showing children flying in a paper airplane above piles of bricks. The message read, "Education lifts us higher." The whole room clapped when they saw it. Billo made a model of a water filter using sand and plastic bottles. He explained how clean water can save lives. Even shy children began to come forward, eager to learn and share. Omar, standing at the back during one of the events, felt tears in his eyes. These were not just small wins. They were signs of real change. He thought of his parents and the hard path he had taken. He wished they were alive to see this moment. Then came a day that surprised even Omar. Amina and Billiel approached him after class, holding a notebook. We've been writing a plan, Amina said. It's for starting a reading club. Omar raised his eyebrows, curious. Bill opened the notebook. Every child who learns a new word will get a sticker. After 20 stickers, they get a prize like a storybook or a pencil box. Omar smiled deeply. That's a wonderful idea. You two will run it. The twins nodded. Omar patted their heads. Then I will be the first sponsor. Within a week, the reading club began. Children rushed to read more, learn new words, and earn stickers. The center buzzed with joy and laughter. Parents visited in the evenings to see their children's progress. One father said, "My son never held a book before. Now he sleeps with one under his pillow." Another mother said, "My daughter used to cry every morning. Now she wakes before me just to reach school early." Omar sat with Dr. Selma. One evening, watching the twins hand out sticker sheets to a new group of students. "They've gone beyond survival," she said. "Now they are spreading hope." Omar nodded, his heart full. "This is only the beginning," he replied. That night, as the twins walked home, they passed by the old brick kiln where they used to work. The fire was still there and workers still moved around, but something had changed. Amina stopped and looked. "We were once part of that," she said, "but not anymore," Bilal added. "Now we build with words, not bricks." They walked on, holding hands, their footsteps light. The stars above seemed brighter than before, as if cheering for them. And behind them, the learning center stood like a small lighthouse in the middle of a dark sea, steady, shining and full of promise. Amina and Bilal were now known across the community as the Hope Twins. Their story had reached not only nearby neighborhoods, but also schools, offices, and even government departments. What began as a simple act of kindness from a young billionaire had turned into something far greater. It had become a movement, where people were coming forward asking how they could help. More children were joining the learning center. And Amina and Bilal were no longer just students, they were now leaders, teachers, and examples of what was possible when someone believed in you. One bright morning, a letter arrived at the learning center. Miss Nadia opened it and smiled. "Amina, Bilal," she called out, "this is for you." The letter had a gold seal and the name of a famous school in the city. Miss Nadia read the letter aloud. It was an invitation, a school had heard of their journey and was offering them full scholarships to join next term. Books, uniforms, transport, and even lunch would all be provided. Amina covered her mouth in shock. Bilal froze. It didn't feel real. Omar arrived shortly after. When he heard the news, he laughed with joy. "This is what I dreamed of for you," he said, "a chance to grow even more." But Amina and Bilal hesitated. They looked at the other children in the center, the ones still learning their first letters, the ones they helped every day. "But what about them?" asked. "Who will help them if we leave?" Mina added. "They still need us." Omar knelt beside them. "You won't be leaving them," he said. "You'll be leading the way. When they see you go to a big school, they'll believe they can too. And you can still visit, still guide, still love them." Mina looked down at her feet. Bilal held her hand. Then slowly they nodded. "Okay," they whispered. "We'll go." The day before they joined the new school, the Learning Center held a special goodbye celebration. Children decorated the classroom with paper flowers and colorful signs. One banner read, "From bricks to brightness, we'll miss you." The younger students performed a short play, telling the story of Amina and Bilal's journey. It made everyone laugh and some even cry. Miss Nadia gave a short speech, holding back tears. "You came to us carrying weight far too heavy for your age," she said. "But today, you walk light, carrying dreams." Omar stood at the back, watching the celebration with quiet pride. He remembered the first time he saw the twins carrying bricks under the hot sun. They were just two children trying to survive. Now they were lighting the way for others. When the celebration ended, the twins hugged each child, each teacher, each friend. They promised to come back and visit every weekend. "This is our home," Amina said. "We will never forget it." On their first day at the new school, the twins felt nervous. The building was large and modern. Students walked in groups, laughing and talking about subjects Amina and Bilal hadn't even heard of yet, but they held their heads high. They remembered Omar's words, "You belong here." Their new teachers welcomed them warmly. They received new books, new pencils, and even lunch cards. Everything felt big, clean, and new. During class, they listened carefully, asked questions, and took notes with care. By the end of the week, they had made their first new friends. The school principal, a kind man named Mr. Faros, called Omar. One afternoon, "I wanted to tell you," he said, "your two students are shining. Their curiosity, their discipline, and their story inspires everyone here." Omar thanked him and promised to visit. That weekend, he arrived at the school just as Amina and Billow were finishing their library hour. They ran to greet him, their faces glowing. "We're learning about planets," Billow said. "And I read a story from Italy," Mina added. Omar laughed. "I told you the world would open for you." Back at the Learning Center, things continued to grow. Inspired by Amina and Bilal, two older girls started teaching the younger children. Miss Nadia guided them, smiling proudly. Omar also hired 2 full-time teachers to support the growing number of students. He made sure every child had books, clean water, and a healthy snack. The reading club was still running strong, now with colorful charts and a prize shelf filled with fun gifts. Children raced to collect stickers, excited to learn new words and stories. One afternoon, something special happened. Billow walked into the Learning Center holding a small box. Mina followed with a notebook. They'd come with an idea. "Want to start a small library?" Amina said. "Books that children can take home, read, and return." Billow opened the box. Inside were books they had finished reading from their new school. "We want to share these," he said. Omar stood silently for a moment, touched. Then he said, "Let's build shelves for them." The next day, the little library opened in the corner of the classroom. It became one of the most loved spots in the center. Months passed. The slum began to change slowly. People started painting their houses. A group of young boys cleaned the streets every Sunday. Parents began asking how they could support the Learning Center. Few fathers built benches for the garden. Some mothers helped cook meals during weekend events. The spirit of togetherness grew. All around there was hope. Then came a surprise visit that would change everything again. A government officer from the city's education department came to inspect the center. He had heard about it through news and community reports. He stayed for an hour, watching the children study, reading their essays, and speaking with Miss Nadia. He left quietly. A week later, a big announcement was made. The Learning Center would receive official support and funding. It would now be recognized as a model education space for underprivileged communities. Omar smiled when he heard the news. "This is the power of one small seed," he whispered. Amina and Billow stood with him that day, their faces full of pride. They didn't need bricks to build anymore. We're building futures with books, kindness, and belief. One evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops, Omar, Amina, and Bilal sat under the mango tree once again. The garden smelled of flowers. Children played nearby. Omar turned to them. "You know what the best part of this journey is?" he asked. The twins shook their heads. "It's not the school," he said. "It's not even the center. It's watching you become the ones who now help others stand tall." Amina nodded slowly. "We were helped," she said. "Now it's our turn to help." I looked up. At the sky, "We're not small anymore." Omar smiled. "No," he said. "You've grown big in the hearts of many." That night, the Learning Center lights stayed on a little longer than usual. Inside, children read stories, solved sums, and drew colorful dreams on paper. Outside, the stars twinkled gently above. And in the middle of it all, 2 once-forgotten twins had become the symbol of hope for a whole community, and maybe one day for the world.